Am I live? No. What's going on here? Why is it not live? There I am. My goodness, it's hard to keep this much good looking man down, isn't it? Good morning, Tina. Oh, goodness. Hi, Carol. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Mike. Good to see you, buddy. Well, that's good. You both, before you go, you've both been sick, haven't you? Did I hear that right last night? Zippity Doo Dug's in this morning. Good to see you. Oh my goodness. I didn't sleep all that good last night either. Tina was saying she didn't sleep. I didn't sleep great. I finally managed to get a couple hours sleep. And if you look real deep into my eyes, you can probably figure out how to get home to your home from here by the road maps in my eyes. Instead of blue highways, they're all red highways, probably. Hi, Diana. Good morning. Diana brought her coffee in. Zippity Doo Doug brought the son in with him. That's nice. That's something I don't need to hear. Not 100% sure if my partner in crime is going to make it today or not, but I think he will. Of course, I've said that before too. Yeah, I was going to open up something else, but I think I'll wait on that. How is everybody that has all the stations that haven't reported yet? I mean, like, Michigan and New York weather or temperature. I got a surprise this morning. I went out to my car and turned it on. It's sitting in the garage, but I don't. What the garage isn't heated, and oh no, Carol, I don't hear. Well, that might be good if you had a stomach bug, because that way you didn't take a chance on picking up something from the stream. I didn't. I had missed part of it, so I don't know how the dinner turned out. In fact, they were closing just as I got back. What was I going to say? Oh, it was 66 when I got in my car this morning at about 8, yeah, about 8 a.m., maybe 8:30. So that was a lot warmer than I thought, but I knew it was warm. We had a big old blow come through here last night, and it's supposed to get nasty up here again. Um, I think it's tonight, but it was a little confusing. They talked like we were supposed to get some 60 up to 65-mile-an-hour winds one night, and I thought that would be tonight because tail end of that storm was still heading up to the northeast, but it might be tomorrow night. The weather person was a little confused or confusing this morning. Carol says it's 39 and drizzly in the great state of Michigan. And Mike brings us in at 14 below. 35 and overcast with snow in the forecast. Oh my. Mike, buddy, you just bring the whole room down. I'm kidding. I hope you realize that. I was going to check something. I was going to try to bring us up a little bit, maybe. I was just listening to my rock and roll here, getting through the morning. Trying to get my blood going. So, well, let's look on it on the positive side, Mike. Let's call it in Fahrenheit. It's almost 7 degrees positive. So let's call it that. What do you think? I mean, that's cold, but it don't sound near as bad. Oh wow, Tina, you got robins too. Mark and I were just talking about that Thursday. He had a couple of robins show up the other day too, and of course, you know, robins eat worms and bugs and things like that. They couldn't find any open spots of grass in his house, and they left. We've got them, but we've got springtime weather here. With the storms today, we've got some sun and blue sky, but I'm not sure how long that's going to last. And mourning doves are back in Michigan. That's interesting. Some things do seem to be ahead of schedule. Some things don't. Mark counts bird. He does his bird. He keeps up with his birds every day on his feeders out back and behind his house. And hang on just a moment. I got a message. Oh, that's not. I thought, wait a minute. Let's do something fun. Or try to, anyway. Somebody might not think it's fun, but I'm going to enjoy it. You guys probably won't be able to hear this. I don't know. The joke might be on me. Let's see how many times it takes. You don't hear anybody answering, no, Tina. One more try.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. Brenda Pruitt.
Why is it forwarding me? My finger's working too fast, methinks. Try one more time. It usually doesn't take more than 3. We could do that, Mike. He might not answer, though. Good morning. This is your wake-up call.
Hello.
Everybody online is listening in on this conversation, so be careful what you call me. You coming in?
Yeah.
Okay. You sure fell back to sleep fast.
I did, didn't I?
You did. She's resting up for her vacation. Well, we'll see you in the room in a few minutes. How about that?
Okay.
Tell everybody bye.
Bye.
Well, there you go. Another station heard from. Well, why not? Let me just see. Something might have come up. I'm almost bet you he doesn't answer. And listen to this. This boy's trying to shun technology. He's not going to answer. That's how he avoids prank calls.
I'm sorry, the person you are trying to reach has a voicemail box that has not been set up yet. Please try your call again later.
And it's not been set up yet because he don't want it set up. That boy, he's trying to get away from everything he can. Yeah, sometimes our mourning doves hang around too, Carol. I think they're actually. I wonder if you've got mourning doves, or if you might possibly have ringneck doves, because ringneck doves are a bit of an invasive. I think they came out of further south, and now they were like one or two sightings here probably 15 years ago, and now I think they're in every state, coast to coast. They look just like a mourning dove for the most part, but they've got a white ring around their neck. Yeah, he's just plain ignoring me. I know. I believe that, Tina. I would give him credit for saying maybe his phone's out. When you live in the wilderness, you don't have a lot of phone options. And everybody in his family but him has like the only local Wyoming cellular provider that at least is based out there. And I believe he has Verizon. And he has Verizon because his daughter has Verizon. He and his daughter share a phone. I'm sure he's probably paying for it. I've been there, done that too. But, so they share that phone deal. And it often limits him on being able to get out and or to be able to call back or call out. I don't know whether the calls get there or not, but sometimes we'll be talking and I'll just get this bloop and he's gone, and he might be gone for days. I don't know I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Although he's got a satellite dish for his internet. And every time it rains, pretty much everything goes to crap. So it's hard to say. But again, that's the price of living in the desert, or almost desert, pretty much desert, the wilderness. But he wouldn't move back here if hell froze over. Yeah, you probably mainly just have mourning doves up there still. I about guarantee you'll see the others eventually. I don't know if I can get a comparison picture or not. They're Eurasian. Might have known. Oh, here's her. Well, that's dumb. I was wrong. It's a black and white stripe. Well, they got comparison pictures, but the mourning dove has got its head pulled down. But I'll see if I can show this anyway. This is on Audubon, or not Audubon, but Cornell, who does a lot of bird stuff. What did I do with me? I bet you guys can't see me because I think I killed my own string. Oh no, there it is. Oh man. Thanks. Some mornings it just don't pay to even get out of bed. All right, here you go. Here's the difference in them. There's a few other differences too, but the main difference is the Eurasian, the collared dove, has this black and white stripe right here. And as you can see, this mourning dove, what you can tell by the more of a spotted black as opposed to just the black tips down here. That's the difference. But the mourning doves might be a little bit smaller. But you can see he doesn't have that stripe on the back of his neck. Hello, good Saturday, Carol Mountain. Hey, Francisco, welcome in. I know you were here earlier, and some good mornings you have. Anyway, there's our birding tip of the day. If you see these guys, then you know you've got the European version. So I'm sure some bird lover from England or somewhere has decided to bring in his own favorite brand of doves, and there they are. And that's what you got. Oops. I'm not sure what that is. It's look like a western. Man, I'm telling you something. I'm not doing anything right this morning. Oh, that's a mountain lion. Something about a mountain lion. Damn. There. Tina says she has both there. Well, that's what I would have kind of expected. So, like I said, it's that's one of the fastest moving or territory grabs or territorial shifts I've ever seen. Like I said, they showed up in a few places. They're probably escapees actually from somebody's pigeon farm, or they're probably raised in captivity for showbirds or who knows what. But they got out, and people started reporting them. When I was working early aughts, I guess it was in the early mid aughts, 05 or something. They started showing up in bird lists. Every once in a while somebody would report saying this different kind of dove, or somebody knew what it was would name it. And but it was just an every once in a while thing, and they were always hanging out with the other mourning doves. And then all of a sudden, boom, they seem to be everywhere. And I don't know for sure, but they're probably you have birdophobia, like Sheldon. Sheldon had birdophobia. He didn't like them either. They're probably. I'd almost bet they're close enough in species to cross over, and what will probably have happen is they'll probably interbreed, and we'll end up with a cross, and that's what will eventually probably be the dominant species. The other two will slowly fade into bird history. That might take a while, but it's what I suspect. That's one of the, if they're close enough genetically, but I about bet they are. I mean, they're almost identical. For real, Doug, I used to be terrified of the geese that hung out at my well, I don't blame you for being afraid of geese. I don't much like geese either. They'll come after you. At least if they've got a nest or something nearby. Okay, who remembers the Big Bang episode where the blue jay got in the apartment and Sheldon was scared to death, and then I believe he adopted it, and then I believe it passed away. Oh, sorry. Brenda told me, do not blow your nose on screen. So it's too late. I'm going to finish this. I think I've told you guys, Carol, I think I've told this in here before, but my mom used to talk about that. She said she hated geese because when she was a kid, they'd have to go out to the barn to collect eggs every morning, or maybe they rotated, I don't know. But whenever she said they had a couple of geese, and they'd always chase her back to the house, hissing and pecking at her. I'll tell you, if they get a hold of, some skin, they can snap you pretty good. All right, Mike and I saw that episode, so that's good, Mike. You and I can talk about it. Yeah, he is terrified. Well, I'm sorry, Doug. I didn't mean to. Hope I didn't trigger anything. Carol, add that to the parental permission slip, please. I really hate to do my show today. Not do the show, but do what I plan to do if Marcus isn't here, because he will add a lot of color and flavor to the topic if I can get him in, if he comes in here. I'm not giving up on him yet. We'll chit chat a little bit longer. I might do it anyway, and then let him come back. And Mike says he enjoys chasing geese in his car. Doug's okay. Thank you, Doug. I'm sorry about that. I probably should ask before. I'm just not used to that, but that doesn't mean I'm not sensitive to it. So I'm sorry. Carol says that's okay, Doug. She's scared of high winds. Well, me too. When they come through, man, I tell you what, it came through here last night. There was a time or two when I wasn't sure if it was raining or if we were getting some kind of a tornado or something, because it was just loud, and thunder started, and it was pretty close. And then I guess it was some wind, but I guess it's mostly just really heavy rain, and it just pounded on the roof. We'd had a metal roof, we'd have been deaf, because we got shingle roof, and it was loud with that. But I went out earlier and drove around the block. I didn't see any damage here. Last week we had some trees down when I went out. Please note Appendix A of our permission slip, which warns of possible avian photos. Thank you, Carol. Please mark that, Doug, so I'll have it on file. I've done a snake show too. I probably should ask that when I did the snake show. I don't know if anybody here's. A lot of people don't like or are afraid of snakes, but I knew somebody that didn't even like pictures of snakes. They'd back up and run. They'd go the other way. Get really upset, mad. I had a snake at work a long time ago when I was still working on airplanes, and we had a patio door. Well, it was a roll-up garage kind of door, not quite that big. They'd put it on the back of one of our hangars to try to get some wind to go, blow through the hangar in the summertime to help cool it off a little bit. And we were sitting back there on break or at lunch, I can't remember. And somebody came up and said, "Here, I found something. Tell me what this is." And it was a little, I think it was a little corn snake. And I was just sitting there looking at it and handling it, not even thinking anything about it. And our manager walked up behind me. I didn't even see him coming. And he walked up and he put one foot on the door had a ledge, and we sat on it like a bench, but that's where the door came down. And he walked up behind me, put his hand on my shoulder and a foot on the bench to step out. He was probably going outside to smoke. He was a smoker. And then the next thing I knew, it was like poof, he was gone. A puff of smoke and a hearty hi-ho silver. And I didn't even see him leave. He just completely left the country. And he moved fast. My boss doesn't like snakes, so we always put rubber ones in his boots. Excuse me. I did that with spiders a few times with people that didn't like spiders. No offense, Tina. Oh, there's a snake in my boot. What time is it? 10:26. Ugh. Yeah, I was hoping Mark would make it this week because I know he's not going to be here next week. He's going out of town. He's going to drive down to the great state of Texas. Sorry, I don't mean to knock Texas. Texans are just funny because everything's bigger and better down there. Somebody in the family, not in his immediate family, but like an in-law, has a big farm/ranch down there. I'm not sure what they raise exactly. I know they got one crop circle, so they grow something. It may just be alfalfa or grass for their cattle or their horses, but the rest of it is probably cattle country, be my guess. I'm sure it ain't sheep, not in Texas. I think they would kick you out of Texas if you showed up with sheep. I have a funny story about sheep ranchers or farmers, but I can't tell it online. But I swear, I promise you, it is funny. I laugh every time I think about it. Look here, look at this big one. I don't know, you guys probably can't see him, but he's sitting over here snoring. Oh, there's his head. You want to say hi? Are you ready to say hi? No. I don't know if you can see this or not, but look at my arm. He's been picking at my arm, and we're starting to worry about getting, cat scratch fever or something. I didn't even realize it was that picked up because he's just doing it barely. Although some of those are bigger than barely's. Oh, I remember now. He got upset when I was holding him. But I caught him doing it again yesterday. I had my arm down like this. And he just reached up and kind of dragged, stretched, and drug his paw down over my arm. Diana said hi. Yeah, did you watch the news yesterday about the deal? I saw something about that, Mike, or I heard something about it on TV this morning. I think I heard it last night, but I didn't, study it much to see what it was. Our Canadian said thank you or hello, good morning. You want to say hi to them? He says he doesn't speak Canadian, but what do cats know? Maybe put an antibody. Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I meant to do it last night and I forgot. See, this arm didn't have anything. He's just been working on this one. And before you ask, I try to cut his claws. But he doesn't like it. I mean, he seriously doesn't like it. All of our cats in the past, we've trained them from kittens to, let us do that. And they're really never a problem. We're not much of one. Spooky didn't care at all. He just handed you his paw just about. But this boy and his sister don't like it. But his sister's small enough we can hang on to her. He's almost too big. He's strong when he needs to be. Eh? Did you hear that? You know what ape means? Diana, he's back to sleep. He's not. I don't think even cares right now. So that's a joke, Diana. I mean, it's often not a gag, but it's it's a running thing in movies sometimes. Do most Canadians use that term a lot? Of course, we say other things down here like "huh," and what is it everybody says when they talk? And or something. We have probably more inappropriate or stupid things that we can say that we say from time to time. New layout. Wow. And I'm learning things every day. Uh-oh. I don't think I like that one. Did that go black on your end too? Well, before I bore everybody to death, I don't know if Mark's going to make it. So I think I am going to. I don't know any Canadians that say, eh? Oh, really? You don't, huh? That's good to know. Maybe it's just certain parts of Canada, eh? Well, let me ask you this, Diana, since you seem willing to talk about it. Are most Canadians as friendly as they show them on TV? I mean, they also make fun of Canadians because they apologize for everything, or they're nice, which I don't understand why that's funny. I think that's great if you are, but some people apparently do think it's comical. Oh, my bootay is hurting. Well, I'm gonna get an East Coast thing. It might be. I've known a couple guys that I've met through airplane work that used to use it a lot. But all right, I'm going to do this. Even without Marcus, I'm going to go over it just because it's just, and I can go through this fairly quick if I want to. What I wanted to do from last week was kind of go over a couple of things we talked about but didn't talk about much. I mean, we mentioned them, but I don't think we showed them, and I wanted to, give you guys a little bit more info. You may be bored to death. Ian's not in here to tell me, but well, I've been accused of that too, Diana. So maybe I'm a Canadian somewhere inside. I don't know. Okay. On with the show. All right. The usual here. Please consider hitting the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you like. And if you don't like, well, no, that's the like and don't like buttons. Subscribe to the channel if you like anything, if what you hear. If you don't, I don't want to twist your arm just to get a number. And if you leave a comment, apparently YouTube people likes that, or the analog, or well, no, not the analog, wow, my mind, I tell you what, I must have put my mind on weekend vacation. The analytical stuff. Anyway. And this was my small attempt at bow and arrow humor yesterday. A logarithm or algorithm. Yes. Not logarithm, algorithm. You could be an honorary. Oh, I would love that. Actually, Diana, that I would not be the least. I would be proud of that. So we got your basic Egyptian here driving a war chariot, and they're using bows and arrows. And I said, could road rage have been the actual cause of I meant to put cause of the downfall of the early Egyptians? Could be. We never really know, do we? So we talked about atlatl last week, and I just wanted to show you real quick kind of what they are or what they look like. And if Mark was here, he could probably add a whole lot of information here. I've never used one. Always wanted to try one, but I just never tried to make one. Although I've had the urge to make one for some time now. But this top one I put that in there because it's pretty basic, and you can see it. These are a museum display, so it's in a hand. Can't remember where that was at. I'll go ahead and read this. Atlatls are ancient weapons that preceded the bow and arrow in most parts of the world and are one of mankind's first mechanical inventions. The word atlatl comes from the Nahuatl, I don't know, language, the Aztec language. And according to, when the Spanish ran into them in the 1500s, they were still using atlatls. I'm pretty sure they also had, you could be an American. Oh, that's already been said. They were still using them, and I've got it listed here somewhere else too. But when some of the other Spaniards went through the Southwest looking for gold in the city of gold and all that kind of stuff in the 1500s, they also wrote in their journals that some of the Indians there were still using a throwing stick. So I thought that was kind of interesting that they were still out there. But to my knowledge, some of the Aboriginal people the native people of Australia, I think, still use them too, but I'm not positive, and they may still be used in Africa. Oh, well, shoot. Let me back up a minute. All the stuff at the bottom here are your basic accessory items that had to do with atlatls, from grinding tips and to the flint tips that they used on them, which is how we got to this subject. And you can see that they're feathered much like an arrow. Usually, from what I've seen, most of them only use two feathers, and they were flat. But the way this stick is made with that bow makes me think they may have had three on there, which you have to have that little bit of extra room. And the lower picture shows, basic throwing motion and drawing. And one at the right, it's just the same basic atlatl, but it's got an arrow on it, so you kind of see how it fits on there. And the upper left-hand corner is they're doing these people. I think these folks were at a university where they were trying to study it. So I found, it's one of the interesting things I thought about it was the efficiency of the thing. It's as we said last week, it allows you to put more leverage at the end of this dart and throw it harder, throw it further. Oops, there's a misspelled word. And of course, if you get technical, they're storing energy during the throw. They think now that the atlatl added as much as 65% more force, and that's a lot. That's a big deal. And 40% more distance to the dart. So, in both of those things would allow hunters to have gotten game, small or probably larger, at a greater distance, which one makes it more available to them to a degree if they're good enough, or it gives them some space to run, so they've got a little bit more yardage. Every foot, every stride helps. And again, these are some more specialized ones. These two at the bottom and the one on the right, those are all atlatls, but you can see they're very ornate and carved. And I'm trying to remember. I told how old these were, and I forgot to write it down in here. I think they could be 10 to 15,000 years old ago. And I believe this one was out of South America, either Aztec or Inca or something. But it looks to me like they made it out of copper, or it's got copper on it. That green patina there makes me think that. Now well, let me go to over here first. These knobs looking ones are blunts, and this little stem would go into the end of a arrow or a dart, kind of like we were talking last week. They'd put a force shaft in them. They'd plug that in, and that's how they'd take small game a lot of times. So they just have to hit it. You could throw that thing hard enough that you hit a rabbit in the head, or probably the front half of him. It would either stun him, or it would at least or kill him. Carol says it's cool to think how people figure out the best way to design things without. Yeah, isn't it though, Carol? I mean, it's amazing what people will do and how they'll get to where they got. And oh man, tell you what, give me just a minute to stand up. And if you think about it, everything we have today was inevitably created because of that ability to figure that kind of stuff out. It amazes me. And I'm pretty sure I've told this, but maybe I might have told it to somebody else. But one of my favorite books, and it was about flying, with a whole series of short stories put together into one volume, but they all fit together. And there was one that talked about the Egyptians will fly someday. And the point being that even though the Egyptians hadn't built an airplane, they could have. I mean, it's the same technology then, or early flight at least, as it would have been then. They had cloth. They had things to make, wing surfaces out of. Had they known how to create lift and that kind of thing. So it took a while, but they could have done it. I mean, so we could have been flying a long, long time ago if they'd been thinking that way. Anyway, it's a good story if you read it. It's better read than me told. Okay, back to the screen. Sorry, guys. I had to stand up. I was starting to ache badly. Anyway, that's more out. Oh, the banner, the one in the middle top there is called a banner stone. And there's been a lot of discussion. I've read a lot of things about this. They used to consider this a counterweight, and we saw a couple of them, not as ornate as this one on those previous ones, but they're not 100% sure what this did. It could have been decoration. I think they probably moved it up and down the stick as needed to balance out a shaft. I could be full of malarkey, but that would make the most sense to me. And I suspect that if you put it back here, it'd be a little bit like a baseball player picking up a heavier bat. And that with the weight down here, if the thrower is strong enough and can get enough power through it in his throwing stroke, that would probably add to the force of the dart. But I'm not sure if anybody's proven that or not. That might just be my guy, or Carol. I might need to think about that. Maybe I could, without good mass and all that stuff, maybe I could figure that out. These are old ones that were collected, and some really nice ones that were found, or saved, or I don't know. Those top two may have been remade. Those look like African to me. That wood is really dark, almost like ebony or something. But you can see the different designs. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different people made them. And this one, like a couple of the other ones we've seen, had these finger holes, and you hooked your fingers in that when you threw it. I guess it helps you hang on to it. It looks like a finger breaker to me. And this bottom one is an Aztec one, a pretty old one that they found that had Aztec carvings on it. And it's burned on the end, so it's not complete, but it's a pretty good example. And again, just a little bit of information about how it worked. And here they show the weight, and they talk about some have them attached, and they do not agree on function, which is like I was saying, they're not They're not 100% sure what they used them for, but they had them, and so there must have been something. And I think if they were throwing a heavier dart, that might have really come in handy again to offset the weight. How many people are asleep? Raise your hand. Don't see any hands up. Next picture, please. And a little bit more, but this is different. That shows you how they do it with their fingers through the loops. But this is mostly about how Inuits and Canadian Native Americans, or then down here it says Australian too, different types of atlatls and how they made them. The top is, that's reindeer articles, and I guess these are, no, that's a mortar pestle. That's a different thing. And here, these are bone points instead of the stone points. These are bone, and this is made a harpoon made out of reindeer horn, or maybe these are the harpoons, I guess. And that's what this bottom one is. You see it; it's got a detachable point into a, looks like a bone or maybe an ivory. This point may be ivory, and this is an Eskimo version, and it's got one hole down here. They think that's to help them make arrows and straighten out darts and things. But it has a slot in it with the peg back here that the dart fits in. So it's a whole different, same idea, but a different design. It's more like a flat, probably a flat piece of whalebone or something. Be my guess. They had to use what they had, or it could be wood, I suppose. But it would be a little odd for a piece of wood up there. And now we'll move on into the next column I speak, which is the bow. And I just used these two things because it kind of symbolized how important the bow was once it came along in European speak. And I can't remember who these folks are, Caesarion or somebody, but it was obviously showing two guys back to back with their archery. And then, this was a coat of arms and they had arrows on it, bows and arrows. And this gentleman right here, and I've got a couple of at least one of his books, maybe two. Saxton Pope was important in bringing the art of archery into the United States a lot, or making it more popular, and talking it up. And he liked to hunt. Or he didn't so much. You often hear his name mentioned in conjunction with Art Young, and so they refer to him as Pope and Young all the time. And they set a lot of standards for a lot of stuff. Did one get his head cut off, or was it broken? I'm not sure. No, so okay, I have coffee. I have my computer in front of me. I was right in the world. Did one get his head cut off, or was it broken? I'm not sure who you mean, Carol. Tina. Catch me up. And the page on the right's actually out of an older, like turn of the century book somebody put together, and I think I found that for sale. But they had this page available to look at. But you can see they're showing different styles of bows, and when as the bow evolved, it changed, and different parts of the world used it differently. The last picture. Oh, okay. Hang on a minute. Yeah, one of them's heads I think it's just broken off. But yeah, his head is missing. I don't know. I can't remember if they thought this was something to wear around your neck. I don't think it was huge, or maybe it went on top of a banner pole or something. I'm not sure. It looks like gold, so it was probably pretty important to somebody. again, I'm not going to try to describe all of these, but this is basically what a longbow would look like strung. And this is a 2-piece bow, which I found quite interesting. That Native Americans or others knew how to take a bow down and for travel, fold it up so they put it in their carry-on luggage on the plane. I think this style here is more likely Asian. These bows tended to be not very long. Overall size tended to be small, but they were usually made with horn laminate. Again, you use what you got and then learn that, that works really good. And so they were usually pretty powerful, but they were short so they can be shot off horseback a lot of times. Native Americans did the same thing, especially in the Southwest. And I'm not sure what these 3 are. I don't think it told. I think it was describing something else when I read up on it. Well, this one's an Eskimo bow, it says. I believe I'm reading that right. And this was a Native American bow they said the use for shooting. Oh, it's a double. Oh, I just realized it's a double string. Oh, they may have been flinging rocks with that. Yeah, pellet bow. Wonder how they kept that from hitting the riser or the face of the bow. That's interesting. I've seen something like that, but it wasn't put together quite like that. Interesting. That shows your basic holes. Different. Again, just like bows are different. Different groups of people, different civilizations held their bows, arrows a different way. Some use 2 fingers and a thumb. Some use 3 fingers and a thumb. Some did like this. This is probably the most common: 1 finger above the arrow, 2 below, at least in this country. And this is a thumb pull, and I've tried that a time or two. You have to get used to that. I usually shoot like this, but I did also used to shoot 3 fingers under my arrow. I would let those fingers push the arrow up against there's a knock point I used a knock point on the string, and that way you knew the arrow was always in the same place when you put it on the bow. And if you're interested in archery at all, you should get online and look. There's a couple of guys out there that are really changing, and we seem to do this a lot, that are already changing how people think about archers in days of yore, because there's a couple of guys that have proven that, like Native Americans could probably, with a bow and arrow on the horseback, could probably outshoot a white man or a settler with a handgun. It's amazing what he can do with the bow on horseback. And this is just basic anatomy of an arrow. But you can see here it's got the hardwood insert in the front. Again, that's just like an atlatl spear in that regard. And the replaceable arrowhead. So especially if you're shooting stone points, all you got to do is miss one time and break your arrowhead. Hey, buddy, you getting up? Hi there. Say hi to everybody. Say hi, everybody. Hi, Teddy. I'm waking up. Now I'm friendly. Yeah. You want to talk about bows and arrows? You want to talk about bows and arrows? Anyway, that's just, I just put that in there for edification. You guys may know all this stuff, but I put it in there in case somebody didn't. Look there, Tina said, hi, Teddy. Carol said, well, hello there, Super Teddy. I would add Sleepy Super Teddy. Back down he goes, guys. That's it. That makes the groundhog has seen his followers and he has left. These are bows that were used in China and probably other places in the Far East or Asia, but these particular bows, I've only ever seen the Chinese, and I thought that there was a group of samurais that used archery, and they do it. They use archery actually as a meditation kind of a thing. And if you've ever heard anybody say, become one with the bow, or you probably haven't, but that's what archers tend to tell each other. You got to kind of become the arrow. You got to kind of put yourself in the arrow and figure out, that's feel where you're going to hit, kind of thing. It's all bow and arrow talk, but these things look so weird because looking at you can see it in the big picture, but the right-hand picture, see how much longer that top bow, that top limb. These are limbs, upper limb, lower limb. Even though this is technically a one-piece bow, it's probably multiple bamboo layers. The Japanese used a lot of bamboo. I've got a bamboo bow. But look at the difference. To make this bow, this top limb would have to be what they call tillered, so that it's made to bend the same amount as this bottom limb down here, because otherwise they won't shoot right. You don't know about the spine, but it makes sense on that last picture, Carol, with the arrow, shaft, fletching, head knocks. Oh, spine. Well, now that's not what I would call, what I refer to as spine on my arrows. Okay. What I refer to as spine, and what most people I know call spine, is kind of it's sort of a combination of the diameters of the shafts, the weight of the shaft, as opposed to the weight of the bow. So you have to kind of match spine weight with bow weight. So if you got a 65-pound bow, takes a stiffer spined arrow than, say, a 25-pound bow draw. So I'm not sure if that's what they're trying to say there, because they're pointing at it with two bars. It would have made more sense to me if they'd spread that out or not put an arrow at all and explained it a little better. Anyway, so that's the Japanese thing. Oh, I tell you just missed a big old squirrel, buddy. This bow on the right, or left, excuse me, the other right, is thought to be it's the home guard. I don't know how to say that. And this isn't it. This is a replica of it, but this is supposed to be exact. It's supposed to be the oldest complete bow they've ever found. They found a lot of bows, but this one had everything on it or with it. And they think it's at least 10,000 years old. Well, it dates back 7,000 years, but they think further back than that now. And then along came this little bow, as it looks, but these are crossbows, and you see these a lot in Robin Hood movies. The bad guys always have these kind. Soldiers carried them. They were handier on horseback. Crossbows shoot a dart, or a bolt they call it, which is just a little short arrow. Some of these things could be 100 pounds draw weight, and you had to crank them or use a tool to draw the string back. They were so stiff. But they didn't have the same kind of range that a longbow did. There was two lines of thought about that. They were handy under certain circumstances. Some people really like them today. I'm not a big fan personally. That probably doesn't surprise anybody, if you know me at all. And these are just some general art that you might have seen somewhere along the way. The far right here is like a Turk or a Mongol lord, or maybe Middle Eastern, with their short bow, and probably made a horn or backed with horn to make it stiffer. This looks like a Catlin painting to me in the middle one, with two Native Americans, and you'll see they're using a much shorter bow than, say, Robin Hood over here, who has the typical English longbow. My longbow's bow, technically, it's this one. Oops, there went one in the floor. Well, you guys can't really see it. I'll show it again in a minute. But this bow is longer than I am tall when it's extended. Now, when you put a string on it and bow it, it's not quite. used to have a pistol crossbow. I didn't go very far, but it was fun. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having one of those shooting the house. Yeah, Don, isn't it? I mean, and to find them, hang on a minute. And to find one intact is just amazing. I don't know if you guys remember or read about oh, there's Brenda. Welcome, Brenda Pruitt. Nice to see you. Glad you could make it. The Iceman, the man they found frozen in the Alps, the European Alps, I don't know, 20 years ago or so now. And as they thawed him out and looked at his clothing and his equipment, they figured out a lot of things about early Europeans, Homo sapiens, moving through the mountains. I mean, it was quite fascinating. I know National Geo did several articles about him over the years, but he had a bow, if I'm not mistaken, and some arrows, and along with his other equipment, but everything wasn't there like that one. That's that old. Now we do have examples of our Native American bows and arrows. Bows and arrows. When you're a kid, we all said bows and arrows. Bows and arrows. I mean, when we said it so fast, it sounded like it was, that. And here's another picture of bow designs. Medieval yew bow, so like European, the Curse of the French, the hero of such battles as Agincourt for the Brits, and this one is a native bow. It says it's reinforced with sinew, and what that means is when they made the bow, the back of the bow is the one away from you, and they would line the back with sinew or the dried out tendons of buffalo, most likely, or deer, and they would apply those with the glue they made. And that made the bows a lot stronger and stiffer and held up better. And this is some kind of an angular European bow or Asian bow here. I mean, Scythian or Scythian. I'm not sure. I think it's Scythian. And you can see the deep curves. I believe that gold banner's art or metal or whatever it was, I believe that was Scythian also. And they're calling it a composite bow, so it's not a self bow. It's interesting. A lot of these are composite bows. And then the last one here is a Crimean Tartar bow. So like rotten hamburger, I suppose. Or no, not rotten. I mean raw. Bows and arrows. There you go, Tina. That's how it's spelled. Bows and arrows. And this right-hand picture is just an example of a brace or a set of arrows, not a brace of arrows. That's two. And with some, target tips on them, although you could probably small game hunt with those. They're fletched up, the feathers are the fletching, and these are marked. These are personalized with somebody's painted sign. And this was something they used to do, at least in competition, was they would mark up arrows in a series of colors, and that color was helped them identify their arrows. I used to make some of my own arrows, and I used to do this. I can't remember what color pattern I was using, but I had something I used. And I made a couple sets for other people, and I think I put different patterns on those each time. Again, we'll go back to a couple of books, pages that just for popular culture. Howard Hill, The Method of Shooting the Bow and Arrow, and he's using a longbow. And the bow I have behind me is a Howard Hill bow, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. But a lot of people don't know who Howard Hill is. But if you ever watched an old Robin Hood movie, chances are he was the guy doing the shooting in the movie. He did most of the bow work back then, and a lot of the stunt coordination if it was related to bows and arrows. And the Robin Hood movie, the early Robin Hood movie that had Errol Flynn in it, I know he did all the trick shooting and all the technical stuff for Errol Flynn. And this right one I believe this is a picture out of Pope's book, although I'm not sure. And it's just showing basic form. And for target shooting, this is about right. For wood shooting or hunting out in the woods, jump shooting, this the way Howard's down, it'd probably be closer, and that may look posed too. And I'm sure it is for this, but he's a little bit bent over at his waist, and he's probably been hiding behind this bush. And I could see this happening. I've been in this position before, and it's why most people, when they shoot this kind of equipment, or well, probably any kind if they're any good, shoot it from different positions. Now I got a little history, a little architectural type history. The ship in the middle is the Mary Rose, and Mary Rose was a famous battleship when King Henry VIII was on the throne in England, and it was the first true, fully battle combat ship they claim was ever built. And I don't know if that's just the English saying that or if it really is true, but the style and design, the high aft and the high front, this thing had a lot of cannons on it. But what's really cool about it is it also had a lot of soldiers on it, because the way they fought back then, they'd pull ships up close to each other, and a lot of times it turned into hand-to-hand combat. One ship tied to another or boarded, and that's almost what it looks like happening here. And it was launched in 1520 or 1511, excuse me. And she served 33 years in several wars against France, Scotland, and Brittany. The Brits just couldn't leave Scots alone. And then and they rebuilt it in 1536, and I'm going to guess that's because over that many years she probably got beat to pieces in battle, because wood on ships didn't stand up all that well to cannonballs. And on 19th of July 1545, she went into attack and eventually was sank because of damage from that battle. And that was the last we saw of her for a long, long time. What did Brenda say? Tina, that was probably because if a teacher was shot, they'd know who did it. Wait a minute, what are you saying? We just have fiberglass bows. I remember in school we had all different arrows. Each student had a different pattern. See, there they go. That's so like on Ghost, Brenda, they would know who shot Pete. Yeah, Mike, it's amazing it lasted that long. It really was. But those early years of that ship was so new, so modern for that era, that she probably had a great advantage for everybody, I'm guessing. And it was, they took advantage of that for a long time. So the rest of this, I've got 3 or 4 more slides. It's all about what they found. They found the Mary Rose. I don't know if I put down what year. She was the first English ship, excuse me, just as a warship. A lot of heavy guns I already mentioned, and lots of small guns for shooting at their crew. So that's the boarding and close quarter combat. There were 30 gunners on the Mary Rose in 1545 when she went down, and 185 soldiers, which was a lot. That they usually didn't carry that. All ships carried a contingent, military at least carried a contingent of Marines. And hey, Dave, welcome in. But this one had a lot of Marines or soldiers. 185 seems like a lot to me. And they could, they did a lot of defending and boarding of ships. And I think this boat was this ship, was very adept at that kind of work. And they were armed with soldiers' daggers and long spears or pikes and bills, which are things they used to cut and slice, but also pry open things and be able to cut rigging and paralyze a ship. Now, these photos were neat because these, as they uncovered and discovered the Mary Rose, and I don't know if the site is through now or not. Those kind of things tend to last for a long time. But what you see in the upper left-hand top picture there, or if you can see them, there's a couple of wooden crates there, and they've got stuff on top of them. These are all longbow staffs that they actually are. Well, I think that's what they would call them, unstrung bows, and they were packed in these boxes, and arrows were too. And I had I saw some other pictures of how they stored the arrows and stuff, but I didn't find any that I could use. And this is a box, for example, this middle photo, and it shows, a warp bow shaft coming out, or a bow coming out. And then these are some more of the bows. What I found really interesting about these bows is how thick some of them looked, which tells me they were pretty darn strong. And I've heard that. But these weren't target bows. These were war bows, and they were used to shoot arrows in a high volley over the massive soldiers that were in front of them, and that's how they did their damage. If you can imagine being a knight or a ground combat type soldier back then, and not only you have to worry about them charging you and running you through with their broadsword, but you might be rained down upon by steel pointed arrows, which could do a lot of damage. Like I said, it won several battles for the English. See, you can see this lady on the right picture. Look how thick that is in the middle. I mean, that's just unbelievably, to me, looks unbelievably strong. You probably have a point. I thought it was to know who hit the target. Well, I'm sure that's what it really was, Tina, but there could have been some thought to, who shot Teacher Sue. This picture at the bottom is a modern representation of how they think a lot of these soldiers carried their arrows, and you can see going into combat. Look how many arrows he would have carried. I mean, that looks like several dozen arrows to me. And they went if they knew they were going into battle, they carried hundreds, if not thousands, of arrows ready to go. And they were made in different places around the countryside. There were like mom and pop shops that actually built arrows for the military. So, and they sold them. And that way the military always had a steady supply. Yeah, I'd say it is, Mike. I mean, that's kind of like the 44 Magnum there, your battle weapons, looks to me like. And I know that they say that some of the longbows of that time period were like 100 pounds or more. And there is competition these days, where certain guys shoot bows like that, if you can draw it. And it's not for accuracy or to hunt with, but they use them to do distance testing to see just how far an arrow will go, and they compete against one another. And again, you got a lot of mass in that. You got weight of the arrow, weight of the bow, power of the bow, the angle of the bow, the arrow leaves the bow, and that kind of stuff. Man, they can fling an arrow quite a long way, several hundred yards, if I'm not mistaken. And these top pictures are frames and racks. This top far left picture is basically just the top layer of this. This is how they pull the arrows out of the ship. And the arrows, I may have a picture of this. Let me look. The arrows were packed a certain way. Yeah, here you go, upper right hand corner. You can't see it real good, but the bottom one are some either redrawn or this is what they think they would have looked like new. They were in boxes or crates, but they were packaged. They had this band right here in front of the fletching or the feathers. It was a leather collar that had holes in it, like coriander, and the arrows fit through, and that's how they kept them packaged and all together. And I can't remember, but that looks to me like that's probably several dozen or 50 arrows in one bow, and they got or one bundle, and they're held together by that leather piece. And you take those out, pull out every how many you were going to carry, and probably throw the leather back and stick those in that quiver. And over here, they found, I think, 146 intact bows on board, still there, after all these years. She was sunk in the near the Isle of Wight, more or less in the English Channel, or along the English Channel off the coast of France. So all this stuff has been underwater for 500 years or thereabouts. Well, they had cannons too, Dave. So I don't know. This is sort of this battleship or ship was built in an age when they were going from. I think they were kind of going away. This was bows and arrows were more of a land thing, but they still used them. They said they had guns as well, but they weren't very mobile and they weren't very good. I've got a better picture of this bottom right I found later. This is how they're displaying them. Well, actually, in this picture, they're hosing they took these out of the ocean, and they show, if you go to the website for the Mary Rose, they show how they did this, and they set them up, and then they sprayed, I think, fresh water on them for I don't know how long, months and months, I imagine. And that helped get all the salt out of them and all the bugs and barnacles and things that, that didn't want on them. They were eating up the wood or whatever. But I mean, it's broken. Yeah, it's broken apart in a way, but look at the side. I mean, they basically found both sides of this thing, and, you could almost glue it back together. I think it's pretty amazing. This is another picture of that in situ. It looks like it's facing to our right, and because down on the bottom I see some kind of a form that looks like it might be the shape of the lower back end if it was all there. Some interesting. I mean, these smaller port. Oh, this might be gun ports. Oh, you know what? That might be the bottom of the ship actually, and it's turned over. It's still on its side. I thought we were looking down, but yeah, that's probably so. Those are gun ports. This is the upper part of that picture is the left side of the ship. Wile E. Coyote, Acme Incorporated. Oh, well, that was the end. So that's the end, guys. So sad. I hope that wasn't too boring. I just felt like we ought to do a follow up. And if Mark is back next week, I'd like for him to hang on, I gotta get rid of that. Can't see anything. We might go over some of this again because he knows a lot more about he's made atlatls, he's used atlatls. I have thought about it, but I've never made one. I've seen a couple of events where they had somebody showing them and letting people throw with them, like Renaissance events, they did use them in Europe too, but I mean, they might not fit Renaissance, but you could find them there, or rendezvous or something where somebody was just talking about primitive hunting. As primitive bow hunting started getting bigger again, and by primitive in this case, I just mean straight bows and arrows, not compound bows and that sort of thing. Man, excuse me, let me get a drink. Even if it's coffee. As primitive hunting came back and got more and more important, more and more popular again, so a lot of people went away from wheel bows and modern bows. Atlatls became popular in some places, and there are, I think, a few places where you can actually hunt with an atlatl now. And I don't know the requirements, I don't know length of dart and weight of arrow and that sort of thing, but no, they could, Dave. They can do a lot of damage. Because an arrow, the weight of these arrows was pretty significant, much heavier than anything I shoot or shot. And you shoot one up into the air like that and arc it down over an army, it said, and I've read that those arrows would come down with such a force. I mean, sometimes you see in movies that hold shields up over their heads to block the arrows, and that that was effective. But if they didn't have that, or if they got by that, they would often penetrate the armor of that day. I mean, they hit like a bullet, and just because you had on armor or chainmail or a helmet or something didn't necessarily mean you were safe from those volleys of arrows. And the English longbow and its use is credited with giving England, a lot of the victories in a lot of those wars, in France and with France and Spain, and a lot of the bowmen or a lot of the bows came out of Wales. There were a lot of Welsh bowmen at like Agincourt, and that's a French battle, and I'm throwing that name out there like everybody knows it, and you guys may never have heard of it, which is understandable because it's famous for. Well, I'll tell you what it's famous. One thing it's famous for, and you may have seen this. If you ever saw the movie Henry V that had Kenneth Branagh playing the part of Henry V, and he gets up on this wagon and gives this really fiery speech to inspire the men, that was the Battle of Agincourt. And it's a real thing. And wasn't surely, but I mean, I know it wasn't the last battle between France and England by a long shot, but it was a major victory at that time and changed a lot about who was king where. And Henry was basically laying claim to France as well, at least as far as its throne is concerned. Is Dave in here? Hey, Dave, welcome in. Adventures by D is with us. I didn't see him. I saw Space Mountain Dave Contrell, but I didn't see you, Dave. Other Dave. Oh, I'm sitting here flipping my cursor like I've got a picture, and I don't. Let me, I don't know how much you guys can see, but let me show you a couple of things I've got that I was talking about. This is a small, what's called a compound bow. It's a modern bow. It has these cam wheels on the ends, and I bought this for the kids. And the benefit of this for a lot of people is it can be fairly strong, but when you pull it back, it gets to like here, and then you see it pop back. It's really, you can feel it, and that's a let off. So if it's 60 pounds here, which this isn't, when it breaks over, it might only be 35 or something. There's a percentage. And I tried one of these when they came out. In fact, I built one from a kit, and they were so much heavier. I'm sure they're lighter now because they've got different materials, but I don't know. I just like recurves. I started out with something like this, if you can see it, and basically this is a fiberglass recurve bow, that means that these tips come backwards, and the string would be here. And I started out with one like this, only mine was yellow. I think it was made by the same people. This is Shakespeare, who is probably way more famous for making fiberglass fishing rods. I don't know if they made the first fiberglass fishing rods or not. They might have. And they're out of Michigan. Yeah, they're out of Kalamazoo, or were then. And this is a kid's bow too, and it's about 30 pounds, I think I read. So I picked this up like at a flea market. It's 30 pounds, which is pretty good for this. And then I got this for the girls, and Jennifer and Kelly both shot some. Jen was more interested in shooting a bow, and she went hunting with me a few times. She didn't carry a bow, but this is a Fred Bear bow, and Fred Bear started things out in Michigan. He's the next guy that came along that really reintroduced the American public to hunters to archery. And this was called a Little Bear, and it was made by them. If you can see this, it's got like this part's called the riser. It's got a wooden riser, but then it's laminated on both sides with fiberglass. The limbs are fiberglass, so it gives it that spring and makes it long lasting and pretty stout. I said I had Howard Hill bow. This is my Howard Hill, and I got this from I ordered this myself for my birthday, and I can't remember what year that was. 89 is when this bow was built. Well, actually, maybe that's when I got it. 3/28/89 would have been my birthday. It's got my name on it. It says it's custom made from Tim Pruitt, but not really that custom other than it's got my name on it because they sell a lot of this style bow. But I got to pick the length and I got to pick the weight. And this was a 65-pound bow at 28 inches. And it was called the Big Five by Howard Hill. This was the bow or style of bow. His name's right there. Might be backwards to you guys, I don't know. But he did a lot of big game hunting too, and back then there was it sounds terrible to me sometimes today, but if you killed 5 certain animals that were listed, like probably an elephant or a Cape buffalo, then you got to, it was called the Big Five. And there's my, I don't know if that'll focus or not, there's my name and stuff on it. But this was, I like these bows a lot better because even as big as this one is, and this one is a little bit heavy, but it's nowhere near as heavy as an equivalent wheel bow or compound bow was. So that's why I went back to more primitive archery, as they call it, traditional archery. But this is what I grew up shooting, was a smaller version of this. So I kind of just went back to what I started with. I only had one compound, so I didn't get too deep into that. This is a self bow, and this one was handmade by my brother Mark Zorns. And he made this for me, and this is made out of Osage orange, or I don't know what you call it in your country, hedge apple. But it's one piece of wood. It's natural, so it's got little, blemishes, if you will, which are kind of not really blemishes. They're more like they tell the story of this piece of wood. And a bow like this can have some soul in it because it was living. It's about a 55-pound draw, and it's sort of a cross between maybe an American style bow and a long bow. It bolts up and looks kind of the same as a long bow, and it's almost as long as my Howard Hill, both of which are as taller than I am. And they're almost exactly the same. But Mark made this one. And he's made a lot since he made this one. He's learned a lot and changed a lot. But he can knock out a small one up to the stage where it's ready to refinish and shoot a couple of days now. Yeah, Six Flags and Dollywood are a lot cheaper. So is Universal, for that matter. I hate to say that. I haven't seen a bow since Boy Scout days. I got my first one. My mom got me my first bow when I was in grade school. I don't remember my age, but I was still under, it was before I was in the 6th grade, because I just wanted to, I was always drawn to it. And I don't know if I knew anybody that shot a bow back then. And Mom got me a Shakespeare bow like this one with S&H green stamps. And I shot that thing for years and had it around for a long time. And I think it finally shattered. And but that's how I got started. And when I was, when I was a kid, we used to shoot, especially in the summertime. That's before I knew Mark, but a couple of kids in the neighborhood, and we'd shoot till our fingers were sore. And that's where we learned about things like finger guards. But anyway, I've got, I'll show you one more. Well, actually, I'll show you two. They're similar. Be quick. This is a recurve, Again, they're traditional bow style, but it's the recurve design. It would be curved back inward when you strung it. And this is also a recurve. And I picked this up at a flea market, and I still think it was a deal, even though it had been, somebody had strung it and probably set it in a corner where the sun hit it. So it had a little bit of a warp to it. But what was cool about it and fascinated me at the time was this bow was made in the 30s or 40s, maybe 50s. And it's a takedown, and it came with a case. So you could take this, travel and put it in your airplane or put it on an airplane or in your trunk of your car, and it wouldn't take up that much space because it comes apart. And then you just pack it in a pack like this. Or how they laid. They were laid out a certain way, and the bag take up the least amount of room. Maybe it was like this. And away you went, which I thought was a lovely idea. That you could, have a two-piece bow. And now two-piece bows or takedown bows are really popular. They do them differently today. They don't use this kind of connection. You have a riser, and then the limbs come off the riser. The riser's solid, at least for most of them. Watch me not be able to put it back together. Watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. Oh, must have been the wrong hat. And this was made by the Ben Pearson Company. It was they made a lot of bows and stuff in the day, but I don't even know if they exist today or not. I'm sure Bear, while it probably still exists, I'm sure it's not what it was in its heyday. I mean, I'm pretty sure somebody else owns it. Fred Bear's been gone for some time now. He's the one I was, I guess, my way of looking at it, honoring when I was the Fred himself Bear the other night. And Fred Bear got the first bow season, actual bow season in the state was in Michigan. And Fred Bear and his bow hunting club got the Michigan. I don't know if it took the legislature or just the Wildlife Commission to pass that, but that kind of really kick-started bow hunting in America again, probably more than the first time. All right, guys, that's it for that part. I'm just what time is it? Because I'm probably gonna kick early today. Hey, Dean, welcome in. If you're still here, I didn't see you at the moment. I was too busy flapping my jaws. Saturday so far is going pretty good. It's sunny and blue sky, and I'm alive, so that's a good thing. I think we're talking about going to Dollywood. We'd like to go. We hadn't been in ages. We hadn't been since they put in 2 or 3 of their big roller coasters now, actually. Who's back from Iowa? Carol, wait a minute. I missed something. Who's been in Iowa? He says hi back. Hello from Tennessee. Oh, with your son. Man, when you're talking and yakking and showing off stuff, you get so far behind in chat. I got really far behind in it the other night. Well, if anybody has a question maybe nobody in here's, that interested to ask a question, but if you do, by all means, put it in chat or whatever, or send it to me in other methods. But I'm not the world's expert in this stuff. I'm just an avid fan and user. He's been reading and doing it for a long time. Yes, I do, Mike. I was collecting bows for a little while. Brenda's probably laughing. But that's why I've got several different kinds. I was trying to find old ones and pick them up at yard sales and flea markets and stuff like that. I've actually got a couple more in the closet. And there were certain models of bear bows that I used to really like, and I've got a couple of those. And I have to admit, my favorite bow today is probably the one Mark made me. That and my Howard Hill. Thank you, Brenda. But she's kind of right. I'd like to collect other things. There's a couple other things I wish I can afford to collect, including motorcycles. If I had a place to put them and the money to buy them, or at least I did. Well, I like books. I have a lot of books. I like bows and I like archery, so I have several bows and arrows. I mean, if you're not much of an archer and you don't have at least a couple of dozen arrows in your closet, there's something wrong. Due to another one of those foreign bug diseases, native yew out west has got hard to get, or some of the redwood species, western redwood that were what most people thought were some of them. Do I use them? Yes, I do, or did, Diane. I haven't lately because I'm not been able. But yes, I've used my bows. I've hunted with them, and luckily there's only one of me. There's only one of me too. I just have stuff. Western red cedar used to be everybody's favorite arrow wood, but something similar to the woody adelgid, I believe, got into those trees out west, and for a while there, arrow wood was getting really difficult to find, so people started using other things. And I think Mark's been using river cane. Somebody does river cane arrows now. I still don't know how they get around the rings. And there's other woods now that people use. Mark also uses there's a red or silky type dogwood that grows up there along the creeks and rivers, and it has when the stems on it are young, they grow up straight, and you can take them and then over a hot fire or with steam you can work them and get all the bends out of them, and you get some really straight arrows. He could be doing one from the beach. Tell me not on this Thursday, right? Will you be doing? I don't know yet. Mike. I'm not going to be here, so I'm going to say, as of right now, I'm not going to promise it. I have thought about trying to do something on the road, or maybe from the road if I can, but I haven't not nailed that down yet. So as of right now, I'm going to say no. But if I am, and I get set up and I'm able to, then I might do something from my laptop, which will, the camera won't be as good and that kind of thing. And I don't know how the connections will be. So it just depends. But we're coming back on Friday, and so I should be back Saturday to do my Saturday show next weekend. But I'll be solo again because I know Mark's going out of town next weekend. He may be gone for a couple weeks, actually. Because he's going to Texas to hunt pigs. They're trying really hard to get rid of a lot of wild pigs in Texas because they're not native, and they do a lot of they've done that in a lot of states. I think Texas might be a little more aggressive, but because I think you're allowed to, this time of year, you're allowed to kill as many as you want to. And if that sounds bad, it's because they're really, really doing damage, and they're not native, and they don't really belong there. And I tell you what, they can do so much damage. Okay, guys, I'm gonna call it a day. I think I'm in a bit of pain, so I want to go stretch out. Brenda, if you don't mind, could you come downstairs and help me maybe put my flags up before I really quit for the day? And but guys, I appreciate y'all being here and sitting through one of my favorite subjects, but I know it's like a foreign language to most of you, but I'm glad you're interested and you sat through it. So everybody go out and have a great Saturday, the rest of the day. And I'm sure there's a lot of streamers on today, or at least, hang on, I'm about to cuss. Go with my foot. Man, drives me nuts. May everybody's feet work for all their life much better than mine do. Anyway, have a great weekend. Have a great next week. I'll probably post some things from on the road, at least some. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I'll try to take my camera gear and take something near the water or along the beach, and then post it for Instagram or something. I don't know. I'll do something like that. And Brenda probably will too. She's going down. She's on a mission this trip to the beach. Two things. She wants to get her toes in the water. She hadn't been to the beach in a while, a couple of years or a few years. And she's wanting to try to find some shark's teeth. She's been checking in with some people down that way that find a lot of shark's teeth. So she's going to try to find her a shark's tooth or two. She has one, but she wants more. And the bigger, the better. So anyway, everybody have a great day. Hope to talk to y'all again real soon. And be safe out there. And goodbye.